Nerdherfers, to another all-new, all-spanking brand-new episode of your fourth or fifth favorite podcast, judging by the numbers we've seen outside so far. Along with myself, Larry Brantley, I've got Micah Donahoe and Brent Williams, and we are the Nerdherfers. We are just three middle-aged guys who love cigars and whiskey and all the nerdy shit we love to talk about from when we were young. And oh my goodness, have we got some fun stuff to talk about this evening. But first, we are going to do a little housekeeping. We're going to start making this a regular feature of the beginning of every episode, just so we can sort of tell you what's going on with us, how we're building the community, all that kind of fun stuff, of which you are a part. First big piece of news, and I just got this from Brent like moments ago. As you know, we have a website, nerdherfers.com. You can always go out and subscribe. Give us your email. We'll put you on a list, just our list, nobody else's list, I promise. And you'll get updates of when we got a new episode dropping. But more importantly, we now have merch on the website, boys.
Stuff.
That's right.
Things.
We've got T-shirts and caps and socks and glassware. We got all kinds of cool stuff. So if you have been following us from the beginning, or if you're just joining us for the first time, and you would like to support the Nerdherfers and support your nerdiness and be a part of our community, please go out to nerdherfers.com and get yourself some merch today. What was the other thing we wanted to talk about, Brett? Instagram, yes. You know, that middle-aged social media platform, because none of the kids are on it anymore. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, but we're really trying to build our community. We're trying to find all the Nerdherfers out there. We know you're out there. We want you to join us. And so we are going to do a little contest coming up. What we're going to do is we're going to send you a link that'll be on our website, correct?
No.
Okay. Maybe you should explain, since you're doing it.
We're gonna make a post on Instagram, so watch our Instagram page. And when that post gets out, you're gonna like that post. You're gonna share it with your friends, and then when we hit 100, we're going to do a giveaway for the people that liked it, shared it, and you get a piece of merch of your choice.
There you go. So help us get the word out. Help us build the Nerdherfer community. We know there's more than 3 middle-aged human beings out there that like cigars or whiskey or nerdy shit. So whoever you are, we're waiting to discover you. And we're out here, and we hope you will join us. Was there any other housekeeping that we needed to do today before we get into this week's episode?
I do not think so.
Okay. Other than Micah being late because he forgot the bottle he was supposed to bring tonight and having to come back home and get it, we're all good. It is a lovely Texas evening. We're sitting outside on Brent's deck, and it was my turn this week to bring the cigars, and boy, oh boy, have I got a surprise for you guys tonight.
Oh boy.
All right, so tonight the cigar that I'm presenting to you is coming from a boutique blender called Oveja Negra. They have 4 brands, and one of the brands they have is called Black Label Trading Company. Black Label, they have their own factory since 2015 in Esteli, Nicaragua. So, you know, mostly when boutique brands start, they have to have another factory roll their cigars. But these guys, you know, wanted to do it themselves. What's really interesting is the guy who owns the company, his name is James Brown. Swear to God, true story. And he may be one of the hardest working men in the cigar business. And he and his wife originally owned a travel company in Central America.
Does he have a cape?
You know what? If he doesn't, we're going to get him one, especially after you have this cigar. Anyway, they started Oveja Negra, and in 2015, they got their own factory. They have a core line from Black Label Trading Company, and this is what I am presenting to you, gentlemen, tonight. Now, this is an Ecuadorian Maduro wrapper. The binder is going to be Honduran tobacco. And the filler is going to be Nicaraguan and Honduran tobacco. This is medium full to full-bodied cigar. Gentlemen, I present to you the Last Rites.
Oh.
So I'm going to pass that to you so you can pass that to Micah, and then there's yours.
Thank you, sir.
So let's get out of the cello and get to work on this, boys.
So,
first of all, love the band, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a skull with like an iron cross right in the middle of it.
I had to double check around this. No, I have not.
Do you have one?
I have not had it.
Okay.
I was looking through the labels on my water mug, And I thought I had spotted it before, but I have not. And this is going to make a fine addition to the next
It will
one.
indeed. I really love... These guys do such a great job on their labels. But more importantly than that, they do a great job blending cigars.
Did you say the company name is Oveja Negra?
Oveja Negra.
Black sheep?
Black sheep, is that what that means? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
However,
that makes sense.
However, I do have quite a few black label tradings on here.
There you go.
Sweet.
We'll have to see which ones you have later.
All right.
Yes.
I'm going to cut,
Yep.
and then we're going to nose.
So right off the bat, you can just smell that Ecuadorian Maduro wrapper.
Ugh,
I know,
yummy.
right? That is the correct sound to make in a case like that. And did you go with a V-cut tonight, buddy?
No, I went the straight cut.
Straight cut.
Yeah, I know.
Living large.
A little out of
All
character.
right. I'm going to
Oh, I love the way this smells.
get a little cold
I
draw
know, I
in
can just
here.
sit here and just smell this.
I know. It's like, don't light it.
Do we
just-
have to smoke it? Can
No,
we just
you
smell
don't.
it all night?
Did you bring extras? I could just put this one under my nose.
So I am getting, this is kind of weird because the last two cigars, one of the prominent notes on the nose was hay, and I'm getting a super strong hay note on this.
Yeah. So have you guys ever smoked cigars that were primarily Honduran tobacco?
I don't think so.
Maybe.
That'll be one that I have to bring sometime. There are some great cigars coming out of Honduras, and some really good cigar makers. There's a family, the Iroas, have been making cigars out of Honduras for a long time, and that is a prominent note. Is that sort of earthy hay sort of, you know?
I'm getting something that's got kind of starts off sweet on the
Cognac.
on the cold draw.
Ooh, cognac, he said.
Well, and the reason why is because I don't want my cap to fray. I always kind of suck on the end of it a little bit before I punch it, so it's a real nice.
That's what she said.
Just aside, I knew it. He couldn't resist.
But yeah, I'm like,
By the way, on this show, Brent will predominantly be making the dad jokes. That's true.
I have a dad joke for you.
Hit me.
What's the difference between tuna, a piano, and glue?
I don't know, Brent. What's the difference?
You can tune a piano, but you can't piano a tuna.
I don't know. I feel like
Moving on.
Rocky Balboa delivered that joke a little bit better.
No, you missed. There's another. You're supposed to go. What about the glue?
What about the glue?
Yeah, people get stuck on that.
Oh my god!
I'd just like to apologize right now to our 13 listeners,
I'm just going to go.
half of whom are our family.
I'm just going to go sit in a corner and just smell my cigar all night. That's all I'm going to do.
Well,
You
just
are
to let
welcome
you
to do
know,
that.
because the draw I'm getting off this is a little tight. I am going.
Wow,
to,
really?
I'm
Mine's
going
not
to
at all.
attempt. Well, you guys have done a straight cut.
Well, maybe you need to do a straight cut.
Well, maybe you knew. No, what?
wow.
Something I was reading. No,
Apparently,
Which
the
one of us
maturity
is
level of
13
this
now?
show just dropped drastically.
Shut up. This is what was leading me into the next thing. So I was reading about all these different cuts. You mentioned in one of the previous episodes the figure eight. Mm-hmm. So I did a little bit of research on that to see how it goes. And obviously, I'm not doing it the same way that they are.
Well, you have to. You can't punch in the center first. You have to punch towards the bottom. And
Exactly.
Right?
But then you can also try another one they refer to as a clover, which of course is just 3.
Yeah.
Or 4, depending on
While
how you
Micah
want to
is
balance
talking,
it. But I wanted to
Larry
let you
has
know that
lit
I
his
was giving
cigar
that
and is
a
currently
shot.
enjoying it.
Larry's getting away. By the way, that angled cut I was telling you about, that's called a Cuban cut,
Yes.
and it works great. I've gotten
That
into
improves the
having
draw.
I'm smoking my cigar right now. I
in
don't know
the, in the
about
mornings.
two
I
of
like
you.
to start off with a nice cup of coffee and a Rojas breakfast taco, and they're little mini perfectos.
Yes.
So that Cuban cut works perfect.
It's fantastic.
I meant to tell you. So I had you pick me up the carnitas. I was hanging out with some friends, and one of our predominant listeners is my buddy Kent. And I want to put a little shout out to him because he has been talking up the show to his friends, and he listens to it because he's on the road a lot.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes, thank you, Kent. And so I ended up giving him one of the Rojas barbacoas that you picked up for me. And while he was doing that, I fired up one of those carnitas. Now, you know how I feel about a darker cigar as compared. So the barbacoa is obviously a darker cigar. The carnitas is a little bit of a lighter one. But the flavor coming out of that carnitas was so unbelievably rich. I could not believe it. I was enjoying a lighter blended cigar more than I ever had in my entire life. So
You hear that, Noel?
So amazing. So
have a
thank you
convert.
so much. That was so good.
Yeah, they're a good morning cigar. So
I have
everybody should be lit by now. So let's tell me what you're thinking, boys, about the Last Rites here. Because I've smoked a lot of these, and I never get tired of this one. This is one of my go-tos.
You know, it's almost akin to pipe tobacco.
Yeah, there's like a some kind of dried fruit
Yeah.
on the draw.
Well, that is the Last Rites from Black Label Trading Company, owned by Oveja Negra Cigars, out of Esteli, Nicaragua. So if you guys are digging on it, if you've never had one before, they're available nationwide at mostly of your local cigar shops. So give them a try, because we'll convert you. This is what we're doing.
So I'm thinking I'm definitely getting some dark chocolate going on right off the bat.
Yeah.
So it's like the way that it all smelled, it was very heavy on that cognac flavor, but then every hit is like toast and dark chocolate.
When I was a kid growing up on my Aunt Lillian's ranch, she kept a stash of chocolate that she thought was known only to her. And it was known only to her and all of the children, all the cousins who lived out. And if you were brave enough to sneak into the kitchen and into the pantry, you could snag a piece of chocolate. And where I would take my chocolate is I would take it out to the barn and hide out in the tack room, which smelled like hay and worn leather, and I would eat my chocolate. And that is why when the first time I smoked the cigar, that was the memory that it evoked. And that's why I've been smoking them ever since.
Well, that's very cool.
So here's to you boys on
Thank you.
on
Good
the Last
choice.
Rites. Now, as you know, on this show, we don't just smoke cigars. We also enjoy what the Irish call Ishkaberta, the water of life, the brown liquors. And today, it was Micah's turn to bring the bottle, which he had to do twice, because the first time he was on his way here to do the show, he forgot it and had to turn around and go home. So, Micah, what did you get for us today?
All right. So what I've done is I have picked up something that was near and dear a very long time ago for me.
If you say Mad Dog 2020, I'm going to punch you right in the throat.
I got to go get.
That's all for this
the
week,
bottle
ladies and
from-
gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on
around here.
Nerdherfers.
All right. So get this. I'm sitting in a bar with a buddy of mine after work one day, probably a little less than 20 years ago. And we happened to be there at the right time, the right place, where a Dalmore representative was there, giving us all of these free samples of it. We tried the 12, we tried the 18, we tried the cigar malt. Oh, can you guess what it could be?
I think I have a pretty good idea.
All right, so what was great about this cigar was that this particular one. This is the Dalmore Cigar Malt.
Dalmore.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit congested still, as everybody knows.
That's
But,
why your accent's so bad.
Yeah, exactly, especially right now. So, as I told you before, my first experience with Scotch was Johnny Walker, which gets a grin out of Larry every single time. I think it's a sympathy grin.
Well, it's more of a smirk, really.
Oh,
But
okay.
okay. We can call it a grin if it makes you feel better.
I started there, and as you know, I moved off of Scotch onto bourbon and others. So while I was at the bar, and they're giving us all these samples to try different things, I was really enjoying it. I fell in love with the Dalmore. And for a birthday, a buddy of mine bought me a bottle of the 12, and I was very grateful. And I was like, whoa, why didn't he buy me a bottle of the 18? Because when I went into the store and found out how much it cost, I was like, I am very grateful to my friend who bought me the 12.
Yeah.
So as inflation happens, the cost goes up again, and I'm not like the Monte Cristo silver that we or platinum that we did before.
Right.
But this is not an all the time thing. But I'm going to go ahead and unveil this
love
beauty.
how every single time you
Mike.
bring something, you say, this is not an all the time thing. So far, it's been all the time.
Hey, if you're going to
Whether
complain,
it's cigars or whiskey, it's been all the time. So, no, I'm not complaining. I'm merely pointing out that at some point you will disappoint us
Yeah.
because you're going to say, This is not an all-time. You're not going to lead with that. You're just going to go, here's the bottle I brought this week. And it is going to be Mad Dog 2020.
You know what? I'm not going to bring that. It's going to be Wine Night, and it's going to be Night Train.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, well. I thought you were going to say Boone's Farm Strawberry
19
Hill.
crimes.
All right.
Oh, my God. Which is a crime. They should call it 20 crimes. Okay.
The unveiling.
Give us the reveal. Yes.
Whoa,
at
pretty.
The Dalmore
Beautiful.
Cigar Malt.
This
First of all,
is so beautiful. This beautiful this beautiful red box. You were going to say?
With the impression of a stag on it.
Correct.
Which is, so the Dalmore is one of my favorite distilleries. It is in the Highlands of Scotland, but interestingly, it is not in Speyside. So Speyside, of course, is where the majority of distilleries are in Scotland because Speyside per capita gets more sunlight than any other part of Scotland, and so consequently, the barley is malted very dry, and it tends to be very sweet, and that is one of the main notes of a mature Scotch. The Dalmore is actually located in Inverness, which is about an hour and a half north of the Speyside area.
Yep.
And it is on my bucket list.
Excellent. So I wanted to give a little bit of the overview before we crack it. This particular cigar malt was designed to accompany the finest cigars.
It's a good thing I brought one.
This Highland single malt Scotch is matured in American white oak ex-bourbon casks. What? Did you say ex-bourbon casks?
Yeah, that's how most Scotch gets made.
Shut up.
Oh, you were trying to be...
I was,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
but thanks for
good.
stepping on it.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
think
Then 10-year-old Matsusalam Oloroso sherry casks, and then finally in Cabernet Sauvignon Briques, which I had to actually look up Barriqueus because I was like, I don't even know how that's pronounced, and apparently it's pronounced Briques, which
Briques.
basically means barrels.
Okay. So let me ask you.
And it's made exclusively for the Dalmore whiskey makers.
Okay.
I just wanted to put that in.
So my question is, and I don't know if you discovered this in your research or not, is it the fact that they go through the basic maturation process in the bourbon barrel, like most Scotch does?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the combination of the sherry and then the wine cask that lends it this sort of cigar malt flavor?
Well, I think that they chose these in particular so that it would pair with a variety of cigars, depending
Okay.
on the notes that you were getting.
Well, I can't tell because it's still in the box.
I know,
I'll
I'm
tell you what we
sorry.
should do.
What should we
we
do?
should try this with a variety of cigars tonight.
So just
You're
so
not
people
hurting my feelings.
exactly, just so that everybody knows. I mean, it's 44% ABV. These days, you can pick it up, depending on where you pick it up, anywhere between $160 to $200 a bottle. So you want to know why I was in my build-up? Is because of that. It has a slightly magnetic top.
That's just cool.
Oh, that's so
man,
pretty.
It's
Look at
so
that bottle.
pretty, that bottle.
Is that gorgeous?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I love the Dalmore. Aside from the fact
Why
they
is it
make a
half
great
gone,
Scotch.
Micah?
That's not true.
It's
With a beautiful
Brent is
silver
making a
stag.
joke now.
A beautiful silver stag on the bottle.
yeah,
All right, let's get this party started.
and it's almost got a sherry color to it.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that in a minute.
Well, I want to get into it now, Micah.
Well, I have to pour it.
I love that sound. It's like my favorite sound in life.
That's why I wanted to put it right here.
Here we go. Now, just so you guys know, that Brent gave us some special snifters.
Glencairn.
To say again, Glencairn?
The Glencairn.
A Glencairn. Some special snifters to do this in tonight because this is the traditional way that you taste a Scotch whiskey because it's very sort of elongated and fluted at the top. So when you put your nose in there, you can really get a lot of the bouquet.
So one of the things that was recommended online was that we add a drop of water to really open this up.
Oh, I've got a pipette in there with some water.
So if we want to take a...
Well, let's go ahead and try it, and then I can go grab
Oh yeah,
that.
I want to try.
Okay.
I want to try
Yeah.
it full strength first. So
Yeah.
All right, the nose.
Sláinte, boys. It's going to be.
Oh my gosh, that smells amazing.
Oh my Lord.
I'm getting that sherry hit
Yeah.
right up top.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
right up top, and it even has. It does not have the look
It's like
of a 12-year-old single malt.
it's a light amber. I mean, I would say almost orange.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
that sherry note's right up front.
So I know I tell the joke all the time, and this is not a joke this time, right on the nose as I get this,
Tobacco.
I feel like I just walked. Shh.
Once again, Brent stepping on Micah's glory.
It is a cigar malt.
I feel like I walked right into a tobacco store.
Mm-hmm.
But tons. Now, one of the things they taught online is the red fruits that you're going to get right off the nose, and I get it. Cherries, strawberries.
Cherries for sure. There's a liqueur.
Sláinte.
Yeah, here we go. Going in. Oh boy.
I could drink that all day.
Wow.
That is baby making whiskey.
Oh
right
my gosh!
there.
I don't
mean,
make
that
enough
is just-
money to have this in my cabinet
Wow.
all the time.
I feel like if my wife just had a sip of this, she'd wake up pregnant. In the morning. That is just so good. Wow. Thank you so much, Micah.
Okay, more importantly, because this is a cigar malt, and the crafters specifically intended it, hit that cigar.
Yep. What I find interesting about that is I took a small sip and then immediately took a drag on my cigar, and that the combination of those two different kinds of heat was just, it's how I want to go out, boys. It's how I want to end my life on this earth.
Oh my gosh, that's
Right?
nice.
That's so good.
That is fantastic.
So we got a winner.
We do.
Absolutely. This is the Dalmore Cigar Malt Scotch whiskey provided by Micah. Thank you so very much. Oh my goodness. I'm just, yeah. Seriously though, baby making whiskey. So
All right,
good.
I'm going to go grab the pipette real quick and some water. All right, so the way this works,
Yes, I've never done this before.
there's a little hole on the side right there.
Okay.
So you're going to put this in here, cover the hole, lift up, and then
Like in the old days when you were a kid in Chili's
did the
and
straw.
you're doing the
in
straw.
the straw, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to put a
Except
little.
this is way fancier.
Much fancier.
That's probably not enough.
It said it only needed a couple of drops.
Oh, well, I'm going to put in.
Yeah, since you're already doing it. Oh boy. Oh boy. Did it break?
It did not break.
It did not break.
That's
Okay.
tough glass.
It did not break.
It is Glencairn.
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 Right.
Glencairn.
Christ and a crutch boy. So while we are opening up our scotch here, we've got the Last Rites cigar.
Oh my gosh.
Mo better?
That smooths that out
Do you mix it?
so much.
Like,
I just
do
swirl
you-
it around.
Do you swish it? Okay.
That smooths that out so much, and you get so much more flavor because you don't get that ethanol burn.
Wow.
Right?
I've never experienced anything like that
Give it a
before.
little swirl.
Yeah, got to swirl.
So I don't know how much water you put in yours. I only put a couple of drops, like the reference that I found online to it.
I put a pipette in there.
Okay.
So
All right, so we are off and running with a really good cigar from.
you know what? Cancel this episode. We're just going to sit here and drink this scotch, smoke these cigars.
Well, that's our sign off. Thank you guys so much.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We got absolutely nothing accomplished this week. We'll see you next time. Okay, no, we are going to do this because we said we were.
Do you know what this reminds me of? This is very close to that Cro-Magnon that you
Yes.
that you introduced us to a while
Yep.
ago.
I've actually had one of these before. This is one of the first cigars you recommended to me.
Yeah.
But it was a long time ago, so I don't really remember.
I am basically a spokesperson at this point for Roma Craft and Oveja Negra. So my best friend from high school, who I'm still very good friends with, lives down in Spring, Texas. And I don't know, a couple of visits ago, I was down there. I was doing a con or something. And they have a Cigar International down there, a brand new one, just opened up. So we walk in, and I find the Oveja Negra, and I tell Jeffrey, you gotta try this. He'd never had one before, and now he just sends me pictures almost nightly of his Last Rites cigar. He's a big fan, and they make a lot of other great cigars too that we'll profile at some point. But
Before
we've got-
wait, before we get into
it's
topic,
always a something.
I know. Before we get into topic, we talked about the nose, but did we talk about the palate? Because
No, we
my
didn't.
flavors are changing.
No, we didn't.
Well, we just put a little bit of water in that scotch and opened it up a little bit. So I will tell you that the ethanol burn has gone out of the nose for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
big
for sure.
time.
And so now I'm picking up something that I would say probably cherries.
Mm-hmm.
Almost kind of citrusy for me.
I was going to say sherry. I mean, I know there's similarities there.
I mean, honestly, I have to agree with that because, I mean, I know it's hard to try to tell the difference between if you're being subliminally influenced by what you know it's aged in. But if you've ever had sherry, that tastes, there's definitely a note of sherry in there. I mean, there's like I would say like between the sip and swallow, you can, that sherry hits.
I got a weird one.
It's that moment when right before you swallow when your nose is doing the most work.
Yeah.
Right? It's telling your palate what to think.
So I got a weird one.
Of course you do.
Jam on toast.
Okay.
I know I'm getting that smoky but slightly burnt crusty toast.
Okay.
But
yeah,
like a jam.
As long as it's not beans on toast.
Yeah. I've never actually tried that.
That would be a very different whiskey indeed we would be drinking.
Okay, I am totally done interrupting.
For now.
For now.
I was going to say, not
that
for
is
the
so
night.
adorable that you say that.
Right?
Because
That's
one
pretty
of
much
the
what the
regular
show
things
is.
on this show is that you just elbow your way in. And I love that about
well,
you,
between
Micah.
the two of you, I have to.
Keep
Although,
talking.
Last episode, I was listening to the bonus episode we released this morning, and Micah is very patiently and very kindly saying, okay, well, are those all your thoughts on that subject? And he was just so waiting to
I
get
was
started.
trying so hard.
And then he
means
rips
he's not
into that
actually listening to
2-day long
anything we're saying.
diatribe about that movie.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Which is its own bonus episode that no one will listen to.
Yeah. So that is Micah's very nice way of letting us know he hasn't listened to a word we've said. He just wants to know if we're finished making words with our mouths.
He's waiting for us to finish talking so he can say what he wants to say.
So let's push
You're
on,
not an
shall
active
we?
listener, Micah.
Sorry, Larry, what were you saying?
Let us push on. Yeah, exactly. So we've got the Dalmore Cigar Malt. We've got the Last Rites by Oveja Negra. The only thing remaining for this conversation is the topic. And Brent Williams, throw it on the table. What are we talking about tonight?
Man, we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
We've already been talking a lot.
That's true.
So just, throw it out there. Let's see what we...
being the... I guess you guys know I'm a software developer by trade, right?
Wait,
Yes.
what?
Yeah.
You're a software developer?
Yeah.
And a good one.
Yeah.
Kiss ass.
True that. I mean, no, thank you. So, obviously, I'm very interested in tech and all things tech, especially revolving around computers and internet and programming, all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, one of the really cool things about growing up is I just remember the decade of the 80s, right? Because those are my formative years, right? I went from preteen to post-teen.
Well, we call that teen.
Yeah, the teens.
You have to have preteen, teen, and then post-teen.
Post-teen. So, but I did all that in that decade. And one of the things I remember was it just seemed like there was something new coming out every day, right? And and it was so cool. It was so thrilling. There was always this what's around the corner feeling, right? Which I think we don't get today because now technology is so pervasive,
And throwaway.
You're right. Exactly. You're welcome, future, by the way. That's the 80s talking. So I just thought it'd be really cool to talk about a lot of that technology because honestly, we wouldn't have everything we have today and a lot of the important technological breakthroughs happened in the 80s, right? I mean, the 80s was basically a decade that was like the innovations were coming just constant. They were fast and they were continuous. And I think it kind of kicked off a technological revolution or a series of them, right? So anyway, I just thought it'd be really cool to talk about all that. And, everyone can thank us today because now they know why they have all the technology they have today.
Well, okay. So I don't know if we're going to have a tech talk about 80s stuff. We can label top 20 or whatever, but definitely top 3. One of them has got to be the VCR and the VHS.
Right? Yes.
It was the first time that. So once upon a time, my executive producer on Wishbone, Rick Duffield, described television to me in the most fascinating way possible. He said, when we were kids, television was a window on a train. And if you wanted to see the good scenery, you had to be sitting in front of the window at the right time. Now, this video cassette recorder comes along in the 80s. And by the end of the 80s, I think the stat was fully 80% of American households had a VCR somewhere in the house.
And they were all blinking 12 o'clock.
They were all blinking 12 o'clock.
That's right.
But it fundamentally changed the way we watched television.
Yeah.
Because now we could find our favorite movies and or TV shows, and we could watch them on demand, which became a thing later. That became a slogan, but it wasn't at the time. So I think in any conversation about 80s tech, that's got to be one of the top ones up there.
Well, I tell
Definitely.
you what, I've got a list. I've got a year-by-year list.
Well, don't just start rattling
Yeah,
them
well,
off. We want to
before
talk about this stuff.
We are going to talk about them, but I think I just think to get an idea of everything that came out in the 80s, and this is not a comprehensive list at all, okay? And I won't even read all of them. I'll just read some of the highlights. 1980, Pac-Man arcade game came out.
The cabinet or the tabletop?
The cabinet.
Okay.
The Sony Walkman.
Yes. That's another one's got to be up there.
The Apple III. And the Nintendo Game & Watch, which is the precursor to the Game Boy.
Yep.
Intellivision, which I had one of those because we were not a follow the crowd type of family.
Yeah.
So we had to get the little off-brand
Oh,
thing.
well, I
So
have
you
to ask you a
mean
question.
like I was with the Atari 2600?
You were following the crowd.
Yeah, we're gonna
Kiss
talk
my
about
ass.
that more in a minute because I was an Atari 2600 guy, but I want to leave behind the direct competitor to the VHS,
Betamax.
Betamax.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Which nowadays, any industry expert will tell you, it was higher quality.
It was.
It was better resolution, and it lost because it didn't have the money
Yes.
backing it like Sony.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that
everything else.
included, but it was also more expensive than the VHS.
Right.
Yeah,
Because it was better.
because it was better. You
the
get
last-
what you pay for, people.
The last thing in 1980, which is near and dear to me, is the C++ language was developed. So, which led to all the video games and stuff. And pretty much every language that's popular today, they're all C-based, right? They all live around that same core. So, 1981. This was
Are
a
we
big one for
going
me.
all the way through the
We're
1980s?
going through, but
here?
I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going
Okay.
to read the highlights. The IBM personal computer, the IBM 5150 came out.
I had that.
Me too. I had it.
Awesome.
Here's an interesting fact. The base model of that, which was 16K RAM, right?
Yep.
Which you can't even buy anything with that low memory anymore. It was just the CPU,
Yep.
the keyboard, and you got all that. You didn't even get a floppy drive, and you didn't get a monitor.
Oh, that I didn't know.
You
'cause
got
mine had
all
two
that-
5 1/4 floppies. In
Yeah,
it.
you had the next up model. That base model sold for $1,565 back in 1981, which in today's dollars is $5,240. Right.
Like my first big screen TV.
Coinciding with that IBM release was MS-DOS 1.0.
DOS.
Yeah, DOS. MTV launched on August 1st, 1981.
Yes.
With what video, boys?
Video killed the
Yes!
radio star.
Thank you. We can continue to be friends.
The next big thing that happened in 1981, the Space Shuttle program was launched. 1982, we get compact discs. And probably one of the most important home PCs ever, the Commodore 64.
Commodore 64.
Yep.
One that I did not have. I actually spent most of my conversations with people sitting there, like as they were talking about their Commodore 64,
Yep.
and I was just nodding and smiling, going,
Oh,
"Yeah,
I loved it because-
yeah, Commodore 64, yeah." And then I was like, I never had.
I
one.
loved that thing. It was funny. It's
Barely
like,
touched one.
hey, I'm going to play this game. That's basically like they had the circus game. It's like, you want to play this game? Okay, you put your cassette in the little cassette recorder, right? You push load, and then you wait 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you come back and play your game.
Well, Commodore 64 had a lot of text-based games, I remember.
Yeah.
That
because my friend Doug Monique used to play one, I think it was called Zork.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Zork's probably the most popular text-based
That
text-based
was
adventure game. Yeah.
and I would just randomly show up at his house anytime, like in the summer, any time of the day or night. He would be sitting there at his Commodore playing Zork.
Couldn't you also program on the Commodore 64?
Yep. I mean, you could have on the IBM too. They had BASIC and stuff. Okay, the TCP/IP protocol was developed, which is the protocol of the internet. It's how everything works. ColecoVision came out. Short-lived ColecoVision. The first artificial heart. So which probably all three of us are going to need at some point. And then the Atari 5200 came out. So
Well, I was enjoying my 20.
I was too. 5200 come out, and I'm like, does anybody want to come over and play Combat?
Yeah, or Barnstormer.
What a move, man. I always thought that was hilarious of Atari. They give you the first game that you get, and you have to have people there. The beginning of social networking.
There you go.
1983, my next computer, the IBM PC XT, came out, or the one with the math coprocessor. Apple Lisa came out. MIDI was developed.
Oh, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything on there related to the first laptop? And I use
Yes.
the word lap
I'm getting there.
very loosely.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
He's only on 1983, bro. We're going
right.
to be here for a while.
ARPANET was developed, which is the precursor to the internet as we know it. NES came out.
Yeah.
There you go. And the first mobile phone was released by Motorola. That nice little brick phone.
Big brick one from
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon.
They
Yeah.
gave you brain cancer every time you talked into it.
And everyone around you.
Yes. That's what turned Bill Bixby into the Hulk.
That's right.
1984, the Apple Macintosh came out. The CD-ROM, Adobe Illustrator, which I'm sure you're a fan of.
Old friend of mine.
IBM PC AT came out, and the Apple IIc. And now we will take a break and talk about the first third of the cigar.
Yes.
And then we will continue with the list, and then we'll go back and talk about whatever we want. Because there's so much. I mean,
So how are you guys doing with the cigar so far?
I think one of the things that I really enjoy about this is it's maintaining from the very first hit what I got in the beginning. Dark chocolate,
Yep.
toast.
yeah.
So when I look for a cigar, and I do sleep around, I try almost everything. But what I look for in a cigar is consistency.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I love the Row House brand so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's manufactured consistently. Rojas trains his rollers and his bunchers, and you're almost always going to get a good cigar. Every so often you might get a weird, but this is something that Oveja Negra, all of their lines, particularly Black Label, but also Blackworks, it's just consistently good all the way through. It's a good even burn. You got nice ash. The flavor profile will change on you as the fire gets closer to the draw.
Yep.
But it's just a solid cigar all the way through. And, I've said this before, I don't look for one-note cigars. Some people like that, and that's fine. But I like a little complexity, but I like it to be consistent.
Yep. And Larry, you mentioned before that you were going to get me to sleep around. I didn't bring a bourbon today.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm so glad.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, Dad.
Your education has just begun.
Yes.
I'm actually getting, on the retro hill in this, I'm getting milk chocolate.
Ooh.
It's very smooth.
Very creamy.
It is
I got it.
creamy. That's
Yeah.
the word.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah.
That's why milk chocolate. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm getting that as well.
I can't stop sipping, and like every time I draw, I can't stop. I don't want to further push the fact that this is a cigar malt, but
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that I think, you're ahead of all of us. I can
am.
just tell by looking at your cigar.
well, I lost my label too, so I think I'm pretty close to you.
Fairly close.
You're just not a double.
Let's
pumper.
get back to the list,
All right.
Brent.
1985, Windows 1.0 comes out.
Wait, did you do 84?
Yes, that
Okay.
was Adobe Apple Macintosh.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
1985, Windows 1.0. VGA graphics came out. So we didn't have to look at text-based games anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of nice. The Commodore
Hey,
Amiga.
you had to use your imagination.
That's right. The Commodore Amiga. Super VGA. Come on now.
Yep.
And one of the cool things that came out in 1985, the Lockheed Martin F-117, the first stealth fighter.
Wow.
Yeah. There's one right overhead right now.
Probably.
just can't see
Only it's a drone now.
Okay, 1986, Micah. The IBM PC convertible came out, known as the first laptop.
That was the first laptop?
Yep.
I had an Osborne.
Yep.
Are you guys familiar with that one?
Yep.
No, I'm familiar with Ozzy. I did not know.
The Osborne computer was this massive dark gray box that looked like an oversized briefcase. It weighed like 50,000 tons, and it had a keyboard that unbuckled
Yep.
from it and dropped down with
Well,
a
all
little
the first
coily
portables,
cord.
all the first ones were really portables, and it was
Yeah.
basically a big giant box with a keyboard that clipped off, and then
Yeah.
a little pop-up screen. Or sometimes the screen was actually built into the thing.
Yeah, and this one had 2 5 1/4 floppies.
Yep.
And the screen was this, I don't know, was that 9? No.
Yeah, but I think they were
6.
9-inch.
9-inch screen.
Yeah.
With nothing but green
Yeah.
green
Monochrome.
on black.
Monochrome.
Monochrome.
Yeah. Okay. 1986. The IMAP Internet Messaging Access Protocol came out, which is how email gets around the internet.
Yep.
The disposable camera. The Atari 7800.
Yeah.
And I've saved the best and probably the most controversial for last.
Yes.
CompuServe introduced a little format called the Graphics Interchange Format.
Yes.
Also known as the GIF.
Uh,
It's the GIF. It's called a GIF.
I'm gonna smack you. You know the creator,
You know, we've never had a knife fight on
creator
this
of the
on this
GIF.
show,
Hey, there's an armadillo running around out there.
Yeah, that's
or
a
as
good
we call it, a
distraction
Texas
point.
speed bump.
It's like, oh, how do we get Micah not to fight this fight? Oh, look, squirrel.
Look, I know people go, oh, but it's the word is graphics, not graphics, right? I get it.
It's graphic interchange format.
I get it.
GIF.
But the creator calls it a GIF, and I'm going to honor the creator
Jesus
by
Christ.
calling it a GIF.
The creator is a troll.
Okay. Well, we're going to stay on topic here.
Okay, 1987. We're getting close. IBM PC2 came out. Or, I'm sorry, IBM PS2 came out. The GIF 87A specification came out.
I'm sorry, did you mean GIF? What?
AutoCAD was released. The Apple II GS. The 8386 microprocessor came out. Computer's getting up there. Actually, I built my first computer, and it was in 1987, using a 386. Microsoft Windows 2.0 came out. 1988, we've got Adobe Photoshop 1.0. Right?
Another of my babies.
That's right. Let's see. The Nintendo Power Glove.
The Power
Come on
Glove.
now.
Greatest
Come on.
80s commercial.
Oh my gosh.
remember
No,
the
the
Power
greatest
Glove.
80s commercial was when the Apple Macintosh was released, and Steve Jobs spent $1.5 million on a commercial directed by Ridley Scott to introduce the Macintosh. Do you remember that one?
I think I do.
Everybody's sitting in that big room with the screen up there, and the guy runs in and crashes it and stuff.
Didn't
Yeah.
DDB do that one? Did
have
they
no
work with
idea.
that ad agency to put it through?
I have no idea. Yeah.
You're
That's
asking
too
the wrong
deep.
guy.
That's too deep for me, man.
Oh my gosh. All the technical
Too
stuff
deep.
that
You're
you're
talking
about right now.
computers and
Right.
software all through the 80s.
Right. Adobe Illustrator 2 came out. Okay, and we're going to end with 1989, and I'm skipping a lot of the computer stuff. The Nintendo Game Boy came out.
Yep. The black and white one.
Adobe Photoshop 2.0. Lotus Notes. And the thing that was probably the most important thing that happened in the 80s regarding technology, Tim Berners-Lee came up with the World Wide Web proposal, which is the internet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that
Well, I thought
very
that Al Gore did
comprehensive
that.
list.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. Al Gore. I'm sorry. I didn't say Al Gore.
But I'm going to say, as a guy who clearly is in a different nerd classification than the two of you, you left out a bunch of stuff.
I
For-
told you it was just
For,
a highlights.
for minor nerds
There,
like myself.
there was so much stuff that happened, like it would take forever.
Like-
I've been
like-
reading a list for 2 hours.
But I mean, if we're talking about stuff that's influential across popular culture, right? I get everything that you said, and kudos to you for talking in the 80s about stuff that we now take for granted, that if that stuff hadn't been invented, we wouldn't have half the shit that we have right now.
Right.
But can we talk about cable television,
Oh, yeah.
which came out in the 80s? You could subscribe to Showtime and Skinamax and Home Box Office, and no commercials, and you had the A-B switch, and you never knew which one you were supposed to press. Answering machines, which answering machines pretty much decided the course of my career, because my mom bought an answering machine, and the very first day I left an outgoing message. And the outgoing message that I left was, of course, funny in nature.
No, I don't doubt it.
But back then,
Do you remember what it was?
I actually do. Because back then, your outgoing message was 30 seconds long, whether you wanted it to be or not. You hit a button, and you're recording for 30 seconds. It didn't give you the option to do it shorter or longer. So I was trying to figure out how to make 30 seconds funny. And so I opened up in an English accent where I basically said, "This is the Brantley household. No one is available right now. Please leave a message after the beep. And now, for absolutely no reason, here is a song about Chinese people." And then I played, there's a Monty Python song that Eric Idle wrote called I Like Chinese. And I just played that all the way to the beep.
That's fantastic.
And what was funny about that was it made my mom so popular because half the time in the evening she would pick up the phone when it rang, and it was a total stranger who said, "Oh, I was just told to call this number to hear the outgoing message on your answering machine." That is kind of when I knew that my career path had been decided for me.
Oh, that's great.
But what else did I have on my list here? Well, let's talk about gadgets of the 80s for a minute, boys. How about the clapper?
Oh, yeah.
Come on. That
Clap
was
on,
the
clap
lazy
off.
man's perfect thing to have in every household across America where you just couldn't spare the energy to walk 2 feet to turn the lamp on or off.
Right.
You could just clap your hands and technology would do it for you. So how about something you can still buy? Not even on eBay, but I think you can just buy these new. Simon.
Yeah.
Remember Simon?
Yeah, they still have those. Yep.
So those are still around. That was fun. The boombox, which was our first foray into, God help me, portable music.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone younger than the age of 45 knows what a boombox is. You've probably seen them in movies. But it was a portable stereo system that weighed roughly 1 metric ton that you carried on your shoulder.
I'm pretty sure they study those in history now in school.
So the boombox was a big one, and of course, it was ultimately replaced by something you did mention, the Sony Walkman,
Right.
which made it so much easier. Pagers were a pretty big deal back in the 80s.
Yep. I had a pager.
And I had a pager too, and I wasn't even nearly as important as you were.
I didn't have a pager until the early 90s. I wasn't as cool.
Actually, if I'm being honest, I think it was me. I think I did too, because it wasn't until I got out of the Army, and I think it was 91, when I actually had a pager. I worked for a nightclub, and I was the head bouncer, and for some reason, they thought they just needed to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And all I did was give that number to girls who went to the club.
I was going to say,
speaking of which,
I did not need a pager when I was 18, but I got a pager. I wasn't dealing drugs.
Are you sure?
I didn't have an escort service. I just
I didn't
had a pager.
I didn't get a pager for any other reason but a way for the girl I was dating at the time to be able to contact me because her parents wouldn't let us date.
Oh.
So when she
Yeah.
would page, we'd have like a nice mutual place to meet up.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's honestly why most people had pagers in the 80s.
Yeah.
Was something along that line.
Oh, and to text. To page people with numbers that you could flip upside down and make words out of.
Yeah, like
boobies.
boobies. Yeah. But another one, and this one actually is very personal to me, because at one point in the 80s, my sister is 4 years younger than me, and I was thinking about what to get her for Christmas, and I just casually asked her when the commercial came on what she thought of Teddy Ruxpin. Now, this was you could record on a cassette,
Yep.
you could stick it in Teddy Ruxpin's back, and then play it, and then his mouth would move to the words, but his eyes would also dart about
Yeah.
as though he were a cokehead on an episode of Miami Vice. And my sister told me that she was terrified of Teddy Ruxpin, and never have I been more motivated to get a Christmas gift in my life.
Yep.
You know what
Then
you
the-
should do? In addition to that, you should also buy her a Chucky doll, and then you can pair them up together, have
Yeah.
them sit next to each other,
Right.
talk to each other.
Love it.
You could record some Chucky voice on the Teddy Ruxpin and
Oh, man.
have it play next to Chucky.
So I didn't actually prepare a list, but as you guys were working your way through your list, I had just a collection of different things that I wanted to talk about technology-wise from the 80s. So I want to go back to the VHS and the HBO conversation because we didn't have any other movie channels except for HBO, which of course, HBO was, just one of those stations where you knew that you could watch Beastmaster every 2 hours.
Right.
And
Mark Singer.
Exactly. When I found out that you could take a VHS tape and set the recording speed, you could either have one movie on recorded on the VHS with really great quality of the time, or
Short play.
you could do the
Super long play.
super long play where you could fit 3 movies on one, which led into my very first recording of movies from HBO, which was Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School.
Back to School, yes.
Back to the Future.
You were big into the back movies.
I was. Topic for another time. And then The Never-Ending Story.
Oh.
The never-ending story.
Yes. So, incidentally, on the next tape, and I don't remember all the movies on there, but it's definitely honorable mention, Real Genius.
Oh, come on. That is a great movie.
It is,
a great
and it's
movie.
and it holds up too.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So this topic isn't about like 85. That's something I actually just for our listeners to know. In the future, one of my next topics is going to be 1985 media.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about the movies. I want to.
You
talk
already
about
know what the
music.
outro music's going to be for that episode.
Oh,
It's Bowling for Soup, baby.
So,
and I really enjoyed all of those pieces when it came to the technology because I wasn't nearly, and you made a comment that we're more technological. He is definitely more technological than all of us.
Well, I sort of feel like we're in 3 interesting places in terms of memory.
Yep.
And in terms of that. Like, you, like, definitely... Brent talks about the shit that, like, we didn't know we needed. And if we didn't have today, life would suck so hard.
Oh, totally.
right. Yeah.
You're sort of in between us, and I'm more of the pop culture 80s guy because I didn't know about any of that stuff. I definitely was not into computers when I was a kid. I was definitely into my Atari. But again, yes, the 26, it was so bad.
Yeah.
The pixels and everything. But it also back then, you could still use your imagination.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I could see the biplanes. I could feel, they didn't have a haptic joystick like they do now. I enjoyed the shit out of that. Me and my buddy Steve Woodson would play for hours on end.
We had
over and over and over again.
We had a biplane video game on the IBM 5150 that was one of my all-time favorites. It was called Sopwith. And basically you had
Stop with Camel.
yeah, but
That was the airplane. Yeah.
Yes, but the name of the game itself was Sopwith.
Yeah.
And you could do loop-to-loops,
Yeah.
no barrel rolls because it was all just
Yeah, it was straight
2D
2D.
scrolling.
It was way before Star Fox.
Yeah.
Do a barrel roll.
Oh, big time. Yes. Showing how cool our graphics are. But you had guns and you had bombs. And what was great that I loved about it was the physics of the game. Obviously they weren't perfect for back then,
Right.
but as you're flying your Sopwith across the screen, you had to decide where to position your ship in the air to launch a bomb
Right.
that would come out, and depending on your speed, would control like how far the bomb was coming out before it started to drop down. So you had to really plan out your targeting.
Well, it's kind of like real life. I mean, it's not like the airplanes just drop a bomb and it goes straight down.
Well, sure, but back then you would think that maybe that was all they really needed. But in
Yeah.
this case, they were worried about the physics.
yeah.
Well, that's nerds all day long, right?
Right.
Like, we just can't just like, bleh, we got to figure out at this rate of speed and this and that.
Did
they
you ever
actually
watch,
did the math.
There was a show, I think it was on MTV, I think.
Very likely.
It was called Code Monkeys. Did you
No,
ever see that?
actually, I didn't see that one.
Oh, it is so amazing. It's basically follows a video game development company in the 80s, but the entire show is done in 8-bit graphics.
Oh, my.
It is amazing. It's
That's
so
so
funny.
funny.
Boy,
You
I
gotta
feel like
watch
we
it.
need to have a little conversation about adventure.
Elaborate.
Yeah, please elaborate.
Created the first Easter egg in any video game ever. They
I
actually
was talking about,
for
first
the
Easter
more
egg. Yeah.
for the younger audience, they made direct mention of it in the in Ready Player One.
Mhm.
and you had to work your way around these various areas with no guide to where you're going,
Well,
moving this little dot around.
That was on the 2600, and that was one of the most annoying games ever because it's basically just big square rooms, and you're just going from square room to square room, and every once in a while you'd hit like a door you couldn't open or something.
Yeah.
You'd have to remember to go back 20 screens to the left
Exactly.
to go find that key, so you can go all the way back 20 screens to the right.
Sounds like the original.
But I had a friend in high school, Doug Monique, who he probably doesn't listen to this, but Doug could do that. And Doug was Rain Man when it came to any cabinet video game in any arcade or roller rink. His game of choice was Williams Defender. He could if he chose to, he could get a quarter, get on that game, and play all night.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
those guys.
I can relate. I had a friend, his name was Sean Fish, and he was the kind of guy that could get on Galaga, and literally he would play nonstop. And basically, he would eventually want to come and socialize with us. So he would find the nearest person and say, "Do you want this game?"
Yeah.
And of course, they get on and die, but
Right.
he would hold that for like hours and hours.
Yeah.
There was one that Bally did that I wound up getting pretty good at, called Tempest.
Mm-hmm.
Love Tempest.
And it was just geometric shapes.
You're just spinning a dial.
and shooting.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Spinning
for
a
whatever reason, I was pretty good at that. But
I remember all the
I was
sounds.
good at cranking that knob.
They're echoing in my brain. And then that little message says, "Watch out for the spikes,
Well,
dead man."
I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this tonight was I just remember, like I said at the beginning, I just remember there was this constant sense of awe and wonder because we weren't used to that technology. Now, when my kids were born, all this was out there, and they've never known a time without computers,
Right.
or that technology, right?
I mean, my daughter, to your point, had to discover vinyl.
Right.
Mine too.
She
Yeah.
grew up without a record player. And I was like, when she turned like 10 or 11 years old, I was like, you are going to understand this technology. Now she loves vinyl.
Oh, yeah.
She loves it for the nostalgia and the retro feel.
And honestly, it's a much better sound than all this compressed digital music we have today.
Well, we can have another debate about that. But you're right. It's our children have grown up taking all of this for granted, forgetting that someone actually had to come up with the idea for what would ultimately become the internet.
Right.
Someone had to come up with a way to mass produce what we now take for granted in our laptop computers.
Well, I mean, our cell phones are more powerful than any computer that was in the 80s, right? I mean, our
remember
cell
the
phones are more
first
powerful
time-
than the first computer that took us to the moon.
I was going to say, I remember the first time somebody threw that factoid out that in my most basic smartphone, there was way more technology in that phone than put the first men on the moon.
Right.
And that made me appreciate
I think
the Apollo program a lot more.
I think the total memory on the Apollo mission that went to the moon was 64K.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, calculators in the 80s had more memory than that.
Oh, speaking of calculator, do you remember the Casio calculator watch?
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I bought one.
Did you really?
So because when I was younger, I asked for one and I didn't get one, and so when I became an adult, found out they were still selling them. I bought one for myself for nostalgic purposes. I wore it for 2 days, and realized I don't like things on my wrist.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I wonder if somebody had that on their wrist in the 80s and went, tiny keyboards, kind of annoying, but I think people will like them enough, and then created like the BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Because all that was the Casio, calculator watch writ large.
I'm pretty sure those calculator watches were just girl repellents.
100%. You might as well have a pocket protector while you're at it.
if you had that on your wrist and you walked into a bar, it would basically saying, "Ladies, don't talk to me."
Yeah.
So,
Like sweater vests. Good heavens, can you tell we were having a fun time with this particular topic of conversation? We were having so much fun, in fact, that we decided that this podcast needed to be broken up into 2 parts. So, you have arrived at the end of part 1. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you'll tune in next week at the same time where we continue our discussion of all things 80s tech, including NFL handheld games, the NES, Dragon's Lair, Leisure Suit Larry, mixtapes, and all things 80s tech. Hey, if you've got a thing that makes you nostalgic and happy for that time period, drop us a line, let us know what it is. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us, nerds. We will see you next week. This has been a production of Nerdherfers, copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No portion, and I do mean no portion of this broadcast may be used without permission. Please visit nerdherfers.com for more information and full legal disclaimer, you nerd.